welcome to another episode of our mini podcast, I Built a Company That Makes a Difference by B1, where we talk to founders of sustainable businesses to get their takes on how and why they started their companies and lessons learned along the way. I'm here today with Ali Kamenetsky, founder of Modern Picnic, which is a chic alternative to the traditional lunchbox. That description is only vague if you haven't visited the website or seen Ali's product, and I'll let her explain exactly what it is because it is indeed very chic. So, Ali, Modern Picnic is a brand that is built on a foundation of functionality, sustainability, and style, which are two things that are, or three things really, that our audience absolutely loves. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. Let's start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your background before you founded Modern Picnic.
Yes. My name's Ali Kamenetsky, founder of Modern Picnic. I started Modern Picnic completely out of a personal need. When I graduated from college in 2016, I moved to New York City where I was working in the fashion industry. And from the start, I was bringing my lunch to work every day, just because, especially as a recent graduate, doing so is so much faster, cheaper, and healthier, especially as a recent grad. But when I went online to buy myself a lunchbox to actually carry my lunch in, I saw options for little kids and men, but none for women who want to look good or do good. So, given the options on the market, from there, the idea to start Modern Picnic was born.
So, you started work in the fashion industry.
Yes.
What were you doing? Were you designing? What were you doing?
So I was doing buying at Macy's.
Oh, okay. And how long did
Yeah.
you do that?
I did it for a little under 2 years. So I
Hmm.
thought of the idea for Modern Picnic literally like day one on the job.
Okay.
And from that point forward, got to work and just started building inch by inch, one step forward, three steps backwards, one step forward, three steps backwards. And was really lucky in that Macy's put you through a pretty structured training program when you started working. And it was very much like 9 to 5. And when you left at 5 o'clock, you didn't, because we were so low on the totem pole, we didn't even have like work computers to take home, work phones. Like when we left, we really left for the day. And it was very much a 9 to 5. So I had before work and after work to work on Modern Picnic and the weekends. And so, um, yeah, just
So
started.
from the like day one when you started your first job as a recent grad, you were like, this thing needs to exist. Can you take us through your thought process and just the iterations and how you got it from idea to launch? How long did that take? And then what were all the steps in between?
Yeah, so I had this idea in my head to reinvent the traditional lunchbox that we had traditionally known, but I had absolutely no idea how to take that idea from idea formation to actually bridging the gap and executing. No idea. I was 22, I just graduated, I had no prior experience, fundings, connections, anything. And so I just began. And so what that meant for me was like that very first day, like was I thought of the name, the brand name. And a funny story, at the time, I actually really wanted Urban Picnic.
Hmm.
Urban Picnic was taken. And so I was like, okay, Modern Picnic will do, which I'm actually so happy about because it's such a better name. And so I bought the domain, I bought the Instagram, I bought the Twitter, the Pinterest. I like secured all of the domains for and social handles for Modern Picnic. And then every single day I would just like build towards launch. It took me about 2 years from idea to actually launching the company. I thought of the idea September of 2016, right after I graduated when I started working. And I launched the company May 1st of 2018.
Mm, okay. So what was okay, so you were like you started with marketing. You were like brand name, domain, I want a presence. So you secured all of that. How did you get your first prototype made?
So that was definitely the hardest part of the whole process. Everything else felt very tangible or within reach, in that I don't know accounting, but our family friends are an accountant. I don't know graphic design, but I can watch a YouTube video on graphic design.
Mm.
Everything felt like I can learn this, or I know somebody who knows how to do this. Whereas manufacturing was literally and figuratively like very far off. I had no idea. And so what I did was I ended up making my first sample out of a paper bag. I can send it to you after. It's like the famous Whole Foods paper bag. I stapled it, I glued it, I taped it. And it was pretty good, but I was like, I thought it was like amazing. I was like, okay, this paper bag, great, ready to go to market.
Mm-hmm.
So I found somebody in New York City just by Googling that was like a bag sample maker. The
Mm.
difference between them was they were not manufacturers. They could make one
Mm.
domestic. So I had this, what I thought was this like prototype that was like ready to go to market, paper bag. And I found this like sample maker and I booked a meeting with them and I came and it was like during like, I must have said I had like a doctor's appointment or something, but I like
Mm-hmm.
scurried out during work and I presented them with this like paper bag prototype. And I was like, I have this idea to reinvent the traditional lunchbox that we typically know and create this new category. And this is what I want to make. And I presented them this paper bag and they pretty much laughed in my face. And they were like,
Oh.
we do not make samples out of paper bags. Like, you need a tech pack. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, that sounds great. What's a tech pack?
Right.
And they handed me a business card for somebody who makes tech packs. And they were like, called him. And that kind of began like our design process of the bag. Because as I quickly learned, they were right. Samples aren't made out of paper bags, but it was a really good starting point because I knew what I was like looking for in terms of
Mm-hmm.
design. I knew I really wanted this classic silhouette, one which doesn't go out of style. There was definitely like just different functionalities I knew I wanted. I just needed to kind of, again, bridge that gap from idea in my head to actually physical product.
So then you you worked with somebody to put together a real professional tech pack that the bag sample maker could work from, and
Mhm.
they did the first, I guess,
Sam
prototype for you. Yeah, the first sample. I guess the prototype would have been your paper bag. And so they did the first sample based on your ingenious prototype. And did you at that time, were you like, great, this is the thing, this is the one, you spent a lot of time looking at materials, etc., or were there a lot of iterations along the way between
there were
that
a,
and launch?
there were a lot of iterations and it took so much time and I definitely like one of my like not regrets, but one thing I would like suggest for somebody else starting is to
Hmm.
really find like a sample maker that understands their vision and is going to be like a partner with you. I kind of just like found this company on Google and
Hmm.
was like, great, they will do.
Hmm.
And didn't really do like my due diligence. I think like there was pros and cons of starting the company when I was so young. I think there was like
Right.
a naivete that was actually really like, beautiful and that like there was no like fail
You weren't jaded at all. There was like
yeah,
no,
no, yeah, there
yeah,
was I wasn't
preconceptions.
no preconceptions, there was no risk of like I wasn't afraid to fail.
Hmm.
Um but there was also some like, like I wish I would have done like a little bit more due diligence. Anyways, the sample process took a really long time and it ended up being more expensive than I thought. And we went through so many different iterations. Like the first sample they gave to me, I was like, oh my God, the way they had structured the bag
Hmm.
was so that like it wouldn't close with the food container inside.
Oh, goodness.
I was like,
Okay.
oh my God, okay, like this just defeats the whole purpose of the bag. And so we went through like many, many different iterations, but eventually we really had to like go with what we had. I
Hmm.
think you need to go in the product development um, process, like it's never going to be perfect. And
Hmm.
if you wait until things are quote unquote perfect, then it's going to be too late. And you
Right.
kind of have to like go with it and
Hmm.
then learn and iterate from there. And the best person to learn from is like your customer base.
Mm.
So, yeah.
So then what is, for somebody who's just starting this process and maybe doing the same thing that you do, which is Googling, who can help me make this first little thing? What learnings or recommendations would you have for them other than just like do your due diligence, don't just go with the first person. What else would you recommend?
I think, yeah, one is find a partner that you can trust.
Mhm.
Two, have a really clear vision of what you're looking for. Although I didn't do the design, I had to find someone who can like create the tech pack and do some of like that more of like the technical design work.
Mhm.
I always knew exactly what I was looking for.
Right.
Um, so I think have a really clear vision, find a really strong partner, and I think stay focused on the end goal. I think like there's so many decisions to be made. Like I was deciding everything from like the magnet structure to the hardware to the materials. And I think like what we kind of said before, like done is better than perfect. At a certain
Right.
point. I think you have to, it's a fine line between having like a really clear vision and understanding your end goal while also like moving things along and knowing that this is not going to be your final iteration. Like we're gonna keep like learning and building and and changing the product to the customer's needs.
Mhm. Okay, so then you have well, fast forward a little bit, you have what you feel like is a workable model that you're ready to go. Were you ready to go to market, ready to launch then?
So once we had a workable sample, I had to find somebody. So we had one product, and then I needed to find somebody who could make hundreds of them now,
Mhm.
thousands. So I was like, okay, so that was a whole new kind of like chapter in the launch process. So we got
Mhm.
a sample made, but these were sample makers. They weren't manufacturers. And so I had to go find somebody who could help me manufacture this. Now, at the time, I decided to go through a manufacturing broker. So basically what that meant for us was I found somebody who was going to be the liaison between me and the factory.
Hmm,
Pros and
okay.
pros and cons to this. The pro was at the time, I had absolutely no manufacturing experience.
Mhm.
I didn't speak the language, both
Which was oh,
what
okay, got it.
like the technical language, the design
Mhm.
language, also the language we were manufacturing in China, didn't speak the language.
Ah, okay.
And I didn't have any connections to factories. And at the time, we hadn't even launched the company yet. So like we had no digital footprint. If you Googled Modern Picnic, like you couldn't find us. And so what factory would want to work with us? We also were looking for the lowest amount of quantities
Right.
human possible.
Mhm.
This was going to work. And so for all of those reasons, working through an intermediary, one a broker, one in which who had relationships to the factory, one in which could be the kind of liaison between me and the factory, sounded like a really good idea at the time. And I think I wouldn't have changed it. I think it was. Now the
Mhm.
cons of going through a broker was one, more expensive because he's baking his costing into the product. He
Mhm.
has to get paid. Two, lack of visibility to the supply chain.
Mm.
So we were working through a broker. Of course, he wasn't gonna give me all of the factory information. That's how he has his business. And then three, communication. We weren't his only client. We were definitely not
Mm.
his biggest client. And
Mhm.
so we were kind of at the mercy of this third party. Now, again, like pros and cons to this, like we didn't really have another choice. And
Mhm.
so that's how we got started. But as Modern Picnic grew and the years went on, like we ended up like right now we work directly with our factory, which makes
Mm.
sense, for where we're at now. But at the time, we had to kind of like work through this third party, which I don't regret doing. I think it it allowed us to kind of like get our foot in the door. I learned a lot from that process. But there came a time where like it was time to kind of grow up a little bit and like
Mhm.
start start really doing this, and we were trying to raise capital, and like we were really growing this thing, and there was no way I could ever, go out and raise money and with such a lack of visibility to our supply chain. Forget about raising money. There was no way I could keep building Modern Picnic without with such like a lack of visibility. I needed to like get in there. And so now we work direct. So I think there are pros and cons and just understanding that and knowing what you're kind of getting into. But I think the same like lessons are true as like finding a sample maker, find a partner you can trust, have a really clear vision, and do your due diligence.
That's a really good point. So you guys use this broker to get you up and running. So you had maybe like your first few orders, tested, made sure that this was something that had legs that you could do as well. Small order sizes, and then at what point did you say, "All right, you know what? I need to have my hand. I need let's cut this out. I need direct access." Was it a milestone, or was it a feeling, or how did you know that it was time?
It was like a mix of both. I think the partnership, like we had outgrown the factory that we were working with, which like I am forever grateful to them. They let us do our first order of 300 units, which is unheard of
Mm,
overseas. It's like unbelievable that they let us do that as like a nothing brand. And so I'm so grateful, because if it was anything more, we just like wouldn't have been able to do it. We wouldn't have been able to execute it. We were bootstrapping the company. So we had outgrown them in terms of just size. And then I think like as the stakes got higher, I think it was all kind of fun and games. And it was just like we were pre-launch and we didn't have like true data or customers. And it came to a point where like we just really needed to like get in there and have, sharper communication and that
mhm,
visibility, transparency, and all the things that are just so important. And so I think it was kind of just like a mutual, like it was time for us to like fly on our own
mhm,
and find a new partner that was a better fit for us for where we were at the time.
mhm. That makes sense. So then talk to us about when you did, or if you did, like a hard launch. So you were testing, testing, testing. Okay, it was growing. This was working. You were like, all right, this thing could be something great. And then when did you decide, all right, we're gonna hard launch this thing. We're all in on acquisition, marketing, sales channels. When did that happen?
Yeah, so we launched May 1st of 2018. So it was about
Hmm.
2 years of like product development and getting our website ready and all of the things. And when we quote unquote launched, we really just like made our Instagram public. There
Okay.
was no like money behind the launch. There was no like marketing activations. We actually did like a small, like in like my backyard, like some like friends and family that had like
Nice.
nothing, like in little like a little like summer get together, but it was by no means like there was no like launch components besides like making the Instagram public. We were
Hmm.
very like bootstrapped, scrappy. But how we started getting the word out was very much word of mouth via press. So from the start, so we were creating this new category. Before us, like nothing like us existed on the market. Like, trust me, if it existed, I would have bought it and I would have gone on with my career at Macy's that I'd worked so hard to like get. And I had no intention of becoming an entrepreneur starting this. I really just needed the product for myself. And I knew I needed it, and I knew my girlfriends needed it. And it was very insular. It was very like, I need this, my girlfriends need it, let me do it. But um, anyways, we were creating this new category, and so we started gaining very early on traction in the press. So I think like a week or two after we launched, Cosmo wrote us up,
Wow,
and then
that's amazing.
yeah, and it kind of like snowballed from there. To date, we've been in over 400 press features, including Forbes, the New York Times, the Today Show, Vogue, Oprah, Harper's Bazaar, and others. I knew
Wow,
because,
that's great.
yeah, thank you.
And
I
that's
knew,
all earned. That's all earned media. That's not paid media. That's all earned.
correct. Yeah.
Fantastic.
DM these editors and um, tell them my story, and it kind of snowballed from there. And I knew at the time we were creating this new category, and I knew our girl wasn't going to carry a lunchbox, like how like, it has kind of like a negative connotation. It has like a childish connotation. You think lunchbox and you think tin with dinosaurs on it. Or you hear lunchbox and you don't think of this beautiful elevated item that could be an extension of your wardrobe, that could be an accessory. I knew that our girl that I was going after wasn't going to carry a lunchbox unless Vogue said it was cool.
Right.
So I knew I had to get the stamp of approval from press. Now, this was 2018. So it was before TikTok. It was before really like Instagram, like influencers. Like at the time, there was like the OG influencers, that was like pretty much it. And so now, if you're starting a brand, like I think it would probably be less like, let me get the attention of press. Cause I think
Mm-hmm.
like, like magazines are just not what they used to be. And
Mm-hmm.
they still have kind of credibility, but it's different. Now
Mm-hmm.
consumers go to influencers to get that
Mm-hmm.
stamp of approval. So if I was starting it now, like the strategy might have shifted a bit, rather than like, let me like do everything I can to get in Vogue. It might be like, let me do everything I can to get insert influencer's name
Mm-hmm.
product. And so, but at the time, it was just where we were at and what worked for us. And so bootstrapped the company for a couple of years, really kind of scrappy, reaching out to editors. We started doing some like paid marketing about
Mm-hmm.
like 2 years in. But yeah, that was kind of like how we originally got our start.
Talk to me about the joys, confusion, and excitement of being a category defining product.
Yeah, so I think I mean, I've always been like deeply ambitious, and I knew I wanted like I wanted the brand to win like from the start, and I knew it had like an ability to be this like a generational shift in how people see the category.
Mm-hmm.
Always knew I wanted to be like so much more than just like making lunch boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I said in the beginning, like I wanted to build a brand that was built on the foundation of functionality, sustainability, and style, but more importantly, one that had roots in charity, women's empowerment, and giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I knew like we were category defining, like I wanted to be like so much more than this like singular product,
Mm-hmm.
and started like expanding the product line. Um, from there. And so now we have like 7 core products that all serve a unique purpose. And
Wait,
yeah,
you have how many core products?
7.
7. Oh, goodness. Didn't even realize that you had so many.
Yeah. So, but it's still pretty tight. But yeah, so it's been like a crazy journey.
And so that first sample and that first core product that you have, what does that look like today versus what it did when you first launched?
Yeah, so that's our luncher. We launched with our first product called the luncher. Chic, functional, sustainable, and we like to say clean, with the easily wipeable interior for those everyday spills. It was really designed to fit like one meal.
Mm-hmm.
So it was meant to fit when I was walking to work, all of these women were doing the same thing. They would have their tote bag with their gym clothes, their laptop, their work files, and whatnot. And then they were carrying a paper, plastic, or old fashioned lunchbox with their lunch in it. So the luncher was really meant to replace that paper, plastic, old fashioned lunchbox. It was for like one meal. We were then getting feedback from women saying, um, like I'm a doctor, I work 12-hour shifts, like I need more than one. I'm a teacher,
Right.
I want breakfast, lunch, dinner, I need more. And so we came out with our large luncher, and we've kind of expanded from there. We now have totes, backpacks, pouches, just launched food containers. But to go back to your question of how did the luncher change? So the shape of the bag, like the core bag has stayed the same, but we've made like little updates that like the customer, like it wouldn't be so glaringly obvious from the customer's perspective, but we've been like iterating along the way. Like for instance, like when we launched, the bag did not have a pocket on the exterior.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Slide your phone in. And I was like,
Mm.
I was carrying the bag. And I think one of like my superpowers is like I am the end user. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know what she's looking for. And I was like, wow, this is like really annoying. I'm in the streets of New York City and I need to just like be able to like slip my phone in. And so like we added a back pocket, and that's just one example of just little design changes that we've made along the way.
Nice. And what about, have you heard of any surprising uses or ways that women are using this that you were like, oh, that's super innovative. We didn't think of that at all, or that's not what I intended, but very cool.
Oh my God, 100%. So our customer is really 18 to 54-year-old women living in cities. And while
That's
she
a
has,
hugely broad category, by the way. Any service or product would kill to have that broad of a range of demographic for a core user. Did you say that ages again?
just 18 to 54-year-olds.
18 to 54-year olds. Okay, wow.
And what's interesting is like it's a pretty even split. So we have this
Wow.
like strong Gen Z demo. They make up the 18 to 24-year-olds make up 18% of our demo, while like the 45 to 54 make up 14%. So it's pretty like evenly
Mm-hmm.
split across the different ages, but she's so much more than just like a bracket on a chart, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a mom who needs a way to store her breast milk, a vegan who cares about what her products are made out of, or a
Mm-hmm.
healthcare worker who simply doesn't have time to leave in the middle of the day. Modern Picnic is for her.
Mm-hmm.
We also recently, and this is just like kind of go to your question, like what did you ever see something that's like, oh wow, that's an interesting use for it? Like, yeah, so we had this mini luncher. It was basically a mini version of our hero product, the luncher, which I just went through. It was just a small version. And we were seeing that a lot of little girls were carrying it, and it wasn't like
Oh.
branded towards little girls. Um, but it was just the sweetest, cutest thing. And we're like, wow, this is like the mini luncher. Like it should be for the minis.
Oh,
And so
that's so cute.
we a couple months ago we rebranded it. We changed the pricing, we changed the messaging, we changed the imagery, and we rebranded our mini luncher for little girls. And it's been like so
Oh.
sweet and cute, but that just goes to show like you can always change and iterate and learn from the customer. Like once, just because you launch something one way doesn't mean it's stuck like that forever. So
And and it's so nice to see how people are making your product their own and adapting it to fit their life. That's really cool to just see.
yeah, totally. And we also have women that just carry our products as regular handbags because it's a nice shape, and why not?
It is a very nice handbag just on its own, which is what it looks like for everybody who hasn't yet gone to the website. Can you talk to us about how sustainability fits into to what you're doing?
Yeah, so all of our products are vegan leather. It's been like that from the start. And so aside from kind of like what the products are made out of, we're never going to use animal products in our product in our assortment. Um, just by nature of bringing your own food, it is so much better for you, for the environment, and for your wallet to bring your own food. We really want to limit that single-use plastics by replacing
Hmm.
it with our products. We want to avoid food waste, and carbon emissions by packing your own food. And we want you to save money by packing your own food. And I think with Modern Picnic, like we really try to like 1% better every day. Like we are
Hmm.
by no means saying like pack your own food 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, or 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, every single day. Like, no, enjoy your life, but everything in moderation. Like try your best. Because even like, I mean, everything's so expensive right now. Even
Hmm.
like packing your own food like 1 day a week can save you like $30.
Hmm.
And really kind of like add those up over the weeks and the years. Like that's a lot of money. And so we say like just try your best. And if our products can be the vehicle to help you do so, then that's like amazing. Yeah.
That's so lovely. Uh, and so you launched pre-COVID. Can you talk to us about your COVID experience?
We had a really interesting COVID experience, one in which like really shocks people, but we actually tripled the business during COVID. I know. It's like,
That's okay. Wow. I was not going to
yeah,
guess that since people were not necessarily commuting to work.
Yeah, so it was crazy. So when COVID happened, our whole spiel was bring your lunch from work to the gym to dinner to drinks to anywhere in between, and no one would ever know what's inside. And when
Hmm.
there was no more on the go, I was like, oh my God, shoot, like where do we fall? Like what's going to happen to us? And what we
Hmm.
found really interesting is that where people were bringing food most certainly changed. They were no longer bringing it to the office. The action of bringing food had not. If anything, was amplified due to COVID. All of
Mm.
a sudden, picnics became the new brunch. That was the old
Oh,
get together. All of a sudden, people had such a heightened awareness of where their food was coming from, who's touching their food.
oh my
I know
goodness.
for us, like we would go to barbecues at friends' houses and we would bring our own food because everyone was
Right.
so nervous.
Wow.
All of a sudden, people just many people just came off of being laid off or furloughed. And so all of a sudden, even as things started opening back up, that $20 takeout salad just
Hmm.
option anymore.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, people had just spent all this time indoors and were starting to make their own food because they had to and were maybe a little bit more used to that. So there was all these kind of macro trends that lent itself in our favor during COVID that allowed us to not only survive, but also thrive and grow. Now, granted, it was an incredibly difficult time for everyone. There was other factors that went into it in that, like the e-com boom of 2020, 2021. Everyone was at home, everyone was online shopping. Um, so yeah, really interesting. But as things started opening up and the world went back to normal, it's like kind of how do we like balance this balancing act of kind of work from home, hybrid back to work, and how do we kind of play into it? Recently, it was last year now in the news, there was coined this term of lunchflation and
Oh, I've
how
never heard that. What is that?
it's just like was talking about how takeout lunch has gotten like so expensive and how
Yeah,
the
it's
average
ridiculous.
up it's ridiculous. Even if you're going to your local deli, like you're spending so much money and everything's gotten so expensive. And so this push towards like making, like making your own, and bringing your own. So yeah.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't even have thought about that trend of, and I do remember I was here in London when COVID first hit, and I remember us like wiping down our groceries, and we were so paranoid about food,
Yeah.
as you said. And now it seems kind of like a distant memory almost about really how paranoid and scared we were, especially about food handling. And at least here, things like grocery delivery was so difficult to come by. And the UK went into a real lockdown. So, like monitoring how often you leave your house and where you can go, etc. So, I remember us buying takeout more than we normally would just because getting regular grocery deliveries was not a given.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so interesting. That trend. So today, what does your marketing operation look like?
Yeah. So today we have a really healthy, diversified marketing mix. You asked about marketing, right?
Yep.
Okay. Marketing mix. So we play into like a couple spaces. Obviously, social is big for us, like Instagram and TikTok. We do affiliate marketing, influencer marketing. We try to do kind of like quarterly meetups and events, activations. Google is big for us, and a big focus for us this year is wholesale retail distribution. So we started as a
Mm,
brand in an effort to prove the concept, build a brand equity, but most importantly, tighten up our supply chain for all the reasons we've discussed before. But now we're really kind of like ready and able and excited to open up into these strategic wholesalers and really leverage their distribution. And yeah, and so this last year we launched with a couple partners and we're excited to keep growing this year.
fantastic. All right. Well, we've come to the section of the interview, same questions for everybody. So super interested to get your reflections. What do you feel in the life of Modern Picnic is your biggest success to date?
Oh, biggest success to date. We recently aired on Shark Tank, and so that was really, I think, exciting in a
That's a
big.
huge one. That's a big one. And the flip side of that, what do you feel like is your biggest failure to date?
Hmm, biggest failure. Um, I think it's more so there, like you either win or you learn. So there's
Hmm.
no like one big like failure, I would say, but definitely a lot of little like mix-ups along the way. I think
Makes sense.
maybe we can say like on the back to the manufacturing side, not finding the right partner from the onset.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. And what about this may be for the entire journey of being an entrepreneur, which is such a rewarding and stressful and exhausting one. What do you feel like is the biggest lesson that you've learned to date?
Definitely sometimes no just means maybe later.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting.
I love that. Just
And mhm,
like we applied just like our biggest investor said no the first two times I stayed in touch with him, and then he ended up being our biggest investor. I applied to Shark Tank 2 years ago. I got rejected, applied again, got in and aired. It's just sometimes no just means maybe later, and it's really simple, but it's just like if you take no at face value and you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities.
I like that one. Yeah, there's a lot of no in entrepreneurship, a lot of
Yeah.
no's. What about this one? Uh, is about other folks, other humans. If you could get about 85% of the world to adopt a single behavior, what might that be?
Hmm. I think just like be kind and have empathy for others.
Hmm. Hmm. That makes sense. All right. And can you please give Modern Picnic a plug? Where can we find you in real life? Any stores that you're definitely in, online, websites? Where can we find
Yeah.
you?
So you can find us on modernpicnic.com and on social, really like Modern Picnic everywhere. You can find us on Saks, on Container Store, soon to be Bloomingdale's, and then really trying to get into more stores in London. So if anybody knows anywhere that you want to find, see,
Ooh,
let us know. But yeah, we're also on Amazon.
nice. Ali, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us today.
How much? This is such a good conversation.
All right, everybody else, we will see you on B1.